Mongols killed 40 million people. They destroyed every empire they touched. Persia, China, Russia, Baghdad, all turned to ash. But there was one man, already dead by the time the Mongols arrived, who might have been the only person on Earth who could have stopped them. Not with an army, not with a fortress, not with 1,000 horsemen, with a single dagger. His name was Hasan Sabbah, and this is the story of the war that never happened, but should have. In the year 1090, in the rugged mountains of northern Persia, a man climbed a peak that no army had ever conquered. He carried no sword, he commanded no soldiers, he had no royal blood. What he had was an idea. An idea so dangerous, so precise, so terrifying, that within 30 years it would shake the largest empire of its time to its foundations. The peak was called Alamut, the eagle's nest, and the man was Hasan Sabbah. He didn't storm the castle, he didn't besiege it, he didn't fire a single arrow. He walked in, disguised as a teacher. He spent months instructing the children of the garrison. Slowly, patiently, he converted the soldiers, one by one. When the lord of the castle finally realized what was happening, it was already too late. His own men belonged to Hasan. The lord was offered 3,000 gold dinars and a chance to leave alive. He took the gold, he left the castle, and Hasan Sabbah never came down from that mountain again. For the next 34 years, he would live inside those walls. He would leave his chambers only twice, both times just to walk on the roof. From a single room at the top of a single mountain, this man would terrorize emperors. Most people think the assassins were drug-fueled madmen, hashish-smoking killers, blindly throwing themselves at enemies. That's the legend, created by his enemies. The truth is far more disturbing. Hasan Sabbah was a mathematician, an astronomer, a philosopher. His library at Alamut contained thousands of books, scientific instruments, astronomical tools. He didn't train killers, he trained ghosts. A fidai, a faithful one, would spend years infiltrating his target's life, sometimes serving as a cook, sometimes as a guard, sometimes as a personal advisor. He would wait for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years if necessary, and then, when the moment was right, he would strike. In 30 years, Hasan Sabbah ordered only 50 assassinations, but every single one was a king, a vizier, a general. According to one Arab chronicler, no commander, no officer dared to leave his house unprotected. They wore armor under their clothes, even while sleeping. In 1092, 2 years after Hasan took Alamut, the most powerful man in Persia was traveling through the desert. His name was Nizam al-Mulk, the Grand Vizier of the Seljuk Empire, the man who held the entire Islamic world together. A Sufi mystic approached his caravan, bowing in respect. The mystic was a fidai. The dagger went into Nizam al-Mulk's heart. Within weeks, the Sultan was also dead. The Seljuk Empire, the greatest power in the Middle East, collapsed into civil war. One assassination, one man, one dagger, and an entire empire shattered. This is what Hasan Sabbah could do. This is what he had done, over and over and over again. Now, move forward 130 years. A new force has emerged from the eastern steppes, a force unlike anything the world has ever seen. The Mongols. They didn't just conquer cities, they erased them. They burned libraries that had stood for 1,000 years. They killed 40 million people, 10% of the entire world's population. When Genghis Khan died in 1227, his empire stretched from the Pacific Ocean to the Caspian Sea, twice the size of Rome at its peak. His grandson, Hulagu Khan, had one final mission: destroy what remained of the Islamic world. Baghdad, Damascus, Cairo, all of it must burn. But there was one problem. One small kingdom that stood between Hulagu and his destiny. A network of mountain fortresses ruled by a sect of silent killers, the Assassins. By 1256, Hasan Sabbah had been dead for 132 years. His successors had grown weak, divided, distracted. The Assassins were no longer what they once were. When the Mongols came, the young leader of Alamut surrendered without a fight. Hulagu paraded him from castle to castle, forcing each one to surrender. Then he had him killed anyway. Mongol Khan, the supreme ruler of all Mongols, ordered a complete extermination. Every assassin, every family member, every child, slaughtered. The great library of Alamut, thousands of books, centuries of knowledge, burned to ash. This is what happened. But what if it had been different? What if Hasan Sabbah had been alive when the Mongols came? To answer this question, we have to understand something most historians never talk about. The Mongols, for all their power, had one fatal weakness. It wasn't their cavalry. It wasn't their tactics. It wasn't their numbers. It was their succession system. When a Khan died, every Mongol prince, every general, every army in the field had to stop and return to Mongolia to choose a new leader. The entire war machine paused. This happened in 1227, when Genghis Khan died. It happened in 1241, when Ogedei Khan died. It happened in 1248, when Guyuk Khan died. And it would happen one more time in 1259, when Mongol Khan died. Hulagu was deep in Syria, about to crush the Mamluks of Egypt, about to take Cairo, about to end Islamic civilization forever. Instead, he turned around. He left a small force behind. He marched back to fight his own brothers for the throne. That small force he left behind was destroyed at a place called Ain Jalut. It was the first defeat in Mongol history. The Mongol expansion was stopped. Not by an army, not by a wall, not by a hero, by a single death, a single succession crisis, a single moment of imperial weakness. Now, imagine that Hasan Sabbah had seen this weakness 100 years before it actually destroyed the Mongols. Imagine that the master of infiltration, the man who could place a dagger in any bed in Persia, was alive in 1255. What would he have done? He wouldn't have fought Hulagu in the open. He knew better than that. He wouldn't have sent armies. He didn't have armies. He would have done what he always did. He would have sent a single man, a fidai, fluent in Mongol, trained in their customs, patient, silent. This man would have traveled east, across thousands of miles, to the heart of the Mongol Empire, to Karakoram, the capital. He would have spent years getting close to the throne, becoming a translator, a scribe, a trusted advisor. And then, when the moment was right, he would have placed his dagger, not in Hulagu. Hulagu was just a general. Killing him would change nothing. He would have killed Mongol Khan, the great Khan, the supreme ruler of all Mongols. Now think about what would have happened next. The same succession crisis that historically happened in 1259 would have happened years earlier. Hulagu would have been forced to turn back before he ever reached Baghdad. Baghdad would have survived. the Islamic Golden Age would have continued. 2 million people in that city would have lived. The House of Wisdom, the greatest library on earth, would not have been thrown into the Tigris. For 7 days, the river ran black with ink. The water turned red with blood. It is said that the Tigris ran with the ideas of dead civilizations. None of this would have happened. Damascus would not have fallen. The Mongol Empire would have fractured a generation earlier. And one man, in a single room, at the top of a single mountain, would have changed the fate of the world. But the story doesn't end there. Because if Hasan Sabbah had survived, if the assassins had defeated the Mongols, something even stranger would have happened. The assassins were not just killers. They were a network, a school, a way of thinking. Hasan Sabbah didn't just invent assassination. He invented something far more dangerous. He invented the secret state. A government that exists in the shadows. A hierarchy of cells where members only know the people directly above and below them. A system of indoctrination so powerful that a man would walk into a king's bedroom knowing he would never walk out alive. If Hasan Sabbah had won, his system would have spread, not just across the Islamic world, but across all of Eurasia. The Mongols would have been remembered, not as conquerors, but as the empire that fell to a single dagger. And every ruler in every kingdom, from China to France, would have known the truth. That no fortress is strong enough, no army is large enough, no crown is heavy enough to protect a man from a determined enemy with patience. The world would have learned this lesson 700 years before it actually did. And here is the strangest twist of all. The Mongols won. They destroyed Alamut. They burned the library. They killed the last imam. They erased the assassins from history. But did they really win? The word assassin is still in your vocabulary, in every language on Earth. Every modern intelligence agency, CIA, Mossad, KGB, uses techniques that Hasan Sabbah invented 900 years ago. Infiltration, cell structure, targeted elimination, psychological warfare, the hierarchy of secret societies, the discipline of underground movements, the patience of long-term operatives. All of it began on that mountain with one man who never came down. The Mongols are gone. Their empire collapsed. Their language is spoken by only a few million people today. But Hasan Sabbah's ideas are everywhere. In every shadow government, in every covert operation, in every whispered conspiracy. So maybe the question isn't, what if Hasan Sabbah had fought the Mongols? Maybe the real question is, did he ever stop fighting them? Did he ever stop fighting us? The Mongols built an empire of horses and arrows, and that empire turned to dust. Hasan Sabbah built an empire of ideas and shadows, and that empire is still here, hidden in plain sight, in every government you fear, in every secret you don't know. He never came down from his mountain, but maybe he never had to, because in the end, he was already inside. He was always inside.